Hello and welcome to the Browns Blitz. Today is Tuesday, November 2nd of 2021. This is episode number 123. I'm your host, Rod Bloom. Joining me today is my brother, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, how are things going?
Rod, what a game. What a week. To top it off, there's snow flurries in the air tonight. We're in early November, and the weather's turning to shit. And the football team's turning to shit. We got a lot to talk about tonight, don't we?
We do. Yeah, I saw our weather forecast. It's getting down to like 28 or something tonight. Yeah, I'm not real pleased with any of it. So joining us tonight is Mike Pistone. Mike, you're in D.C., but I guess you actually live pretty close to me. So it's good to talk to you. How are things going?
Well, good to talk to you guys. Not the best week, but I was mostly dealing with it and processing the Steelers game, and then everything kind of flared back up today with more Browns drama. But other than that, I guess I'm doing pretty good.
Excellent. So to help us along, I understand we've all brought beverages tonight under the circumstances. Let's talk about our Blitz beverages. And Mike, you're the guest. We're going to let you go first. Tell us what you're drinking tonight.
All right. Well, I'm out of town, so I walked next door to the hotel to the Whole Foods and got a Japanese Sapporo. And then my backup is a Stella that they were actually selling downstairs in the hotel. So those are my two options tonight, and I'm starting with the Japanese one first.
Nice. I think I've had that, but it's been a long time. So is that something you've had before?
So far.
Okay.
I think I've had it draft before, but everything else that they had there was either in by the 6 or 12 pack and didn't look that great, or were just kind of things I could have gotten at home. So this was something a little different. I hadn't seen one around for a while, so I figured this was a good route to go and give it a shot.
That's cool. And Stella's not a bad backup either. So
No. So I figured if this didn't pan out or didn't taste like I remembered, then that would I could just fall back to that one if I had to.
Yeah, and in case people don't know, if you haven't been to Whole Foods to check out their beer selection, they got a pretty nice beer selection. If you're looking for someplace, if you don't have anything else by you, man, go into Whole Foods. It's a pretty good selection in there. It's not going to be as great as some other beer stores or anything, but it's a pretty good selection. So, anyways, Jeff, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, as promised, Rod, I am drinking one of the other beers that our cousins brought from Milwaukee a few weeks ago.
Okay.
So this one is from Milwaukee Brewing Company, and it's called Louie's Demise. Louie's Demise is a hoppy amber ale. Like 5.5%. The story behind Louie's demise is Louie was a Browns fan, and he criticized the quarterback. No, that's not true. The real story is
you had me going there, man.
This is really a good story, though. Louie was one of the brewers, I guess, originally, and he was hanging out in the bar, and he was actually hitting on another guy's wife, and the guy hit him over the head with his beer mug and killed him. So Louie's kind of become the mascot of this company. He's somebody's great uncle now. And they've actually created a couple of other Louie type beers. They've got one called Louie's Weekend, which is like a herby, spice type of ale. And then they've also got one called Louie's Resurrection, which I definitely have to look for. This is basically taking Louie's Demise and barrel aging it in whiskey barrels, and it takes the alcohol content up to 10.5%. So,
Okay.
that's something to look forward to if I ever get to Wisconsin. But anyway, that's the, interesting story. But I've got another one that they brought me to give a shot to. But, all these beers I think they brought are pretty popular in Wisconsin as just, summer drinking beers,
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Nice. So we don't actually know when Louis met his demise then, I guess.
It was in 1886, actually.
But
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
long before the advent of pro football.
was it a Friday, a Saturday? Because I'm thinking about Louis' weekend. Just that beer and if
Yeah.
that's a good name or not. So, anyways,
Yeah.
guys, I'm drinking my last Hoppin' Frog Mango Turbo Shandy Citrus Ale. It's a mouthful, but it's I've had this on the show before, and it's pretty good. It's one of these that doesn't really taste a whole lot like beer, but it's kind of smooth drinking. It's got a little bit of alcohol. I think it's like 7% or something. So tastes pretty good. Goes down smooth, and I'll probably have it gone pretty soon. So, anyways, I thought that was a pretty good segment, guys. Nice job. So.
Awesome.
So Mike, let's hear about your journey as a Browns fan, just kind of how you became a Browns fan, and I know you said you have relatives up in Cleveland, so I imagine that plays into it. But just going to give you the floor and let you talk about that for a few minutes.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, basically, I'm a Browns fan from birth. I was born in the city of Cleveland. Entire family, both mom and dad's side, lived in Cleveland, still live in the area. So, my Browns, my children are now Browns fans, and I've kind of, brought that upon them. But you either inherit it or, usually kind of come about through some sort of a family connection. Although the last couple of weeks, it seemed like the Oklahoma, Texas contingent was making an appearance. But the newer Browns fans who came with Baker, which I love. I think it's great that the Oklahoma TV market gets the Browns games every week, but Dayton doesn't always get them. But anyway, so Browns fan from birth. My whole family's up there. My grandpa was a season ticket holder from, I guess, allegedly the late 40s. Although I don't think we've ever been able to actually confirm that. His claim was that he got tickets the perfect season they had, which was like 14 or 15-0 back in like 48 or 49. But my mom was born in 1950, and he's positive, or when he was still with us, he was positive that he had tickets before my mom was born. So my grandpa had season tickets all growing up. So the Browns and Browns fandom was always around us. And, I think that kind of got passed along to me somewhere along the way. Earliest memories are still painful, scarred memories that I have of black and white TVs and watching AFC championship games and in the 80s. So, I still have a bit of a reaction hearing John Elway's name in any context. I even drove past his car dealership out in Colorado once and still had the same reaction. So it doesn't even have to be in the scope of football. I still react the same way.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, it goes all the way back. My grandpa passed along his lifelong season tickets to my aunt and uncles. And then they kind of, after having for about 15 years, they hit rock bottom with Browns fandom and were ready to give up the seats. So my cousin and I actually took them over, a couple years ago, which at the time was not a good decision at all. I think the 3-13 2015 season was when my aunt and uncle finally threw in the towel. So I talked my cousin into splitting it with me. And, they promptly went 1-15 and then 0-16 the first 2 years we had. So,
woohoo! Yeah.
We were questioning that choice. But I think the last 3 years have been some of the most fun football I've seen in my lifetime, without a doubt. And it's it's another crazy Browns season. There's always something swirling. It's never a smooth, easy one like some other fan bases seem to have. But there's nothing better than watching this team and the pain that occasionally comes along with it, like last Sunday, for example.
Yes, last Sunday, the Browns lost to the Steelers 15-10. A game that was kind of miserable to watch. I mean, first half it's 3-3, and you're wondering if it's going to be one of those games where it's a 6-3 game, and Pittsburgh ends up winning 15-10. Just not a good game for the Browns, pretty much any way you look at it. Browns are now 4-4 and in last place, which I'm sure every other fan of any other team in the AFC North is just whooping it up right now. But rather than listening to me go on and on about this game for a few minutes to get into it, I know Jeff has some thoughts. So Jeff, I'm going to let you just start this thing off with your rant.
Well, just when you think that this organization has finally turned the corner to credibility, to a solid foundation, and something to really build on, here comes the dysfunction again. And we apparently have a bunch of guys who don't like playing together. So, that's my rant. By week 8 of the NFL season, we should have some cohesiveness. We should have some team building. We should have guys that are on the same page. But apparently now we are all coming up with excuses as to why that hasn't happened. And honest to God, I am sick to death of the excuses of why that hasn't happened. There are 53 grown men on this football team that all have responsibilities. And I see about a handful of them that are actually performing at what I would consider to be a professional level. Now, this is not to question their professionalism, which is two completely different things. Okay. I know these guys work hard. They practice hard. They have work ethic, and they want to do well. But professionalism is when you put the team above yourself. And I have not seen that happen. We talked a little bit after the Cardinals game about how this thing could easily go off the rails, how fragile this franchise is still, and how hard it is to stay with that winning culture and not slip back into a losing mindset. And I said how important it was to win that game against Denver, to reestablish that and build on that belief that this was, this could be a winning organization. And just when you thought, boy, they had that figured out, along comes the Steelers, and the Browns lay the biggest egg in probably 2 or 3 years, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, where guys just look absolutely out of sync. And you know what? We could go down a laundry list of plays and players, but the bottom line is they played like a team that doesn't know what a team is. And it was hard to watch. It was ugly to watch. And I think, this fan base reacted to that appropriately, because at this point in the year, we should be past all that. We shouldn't be talking about who's open, who's not open, who can throw, who can't throw, blah, 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 blah. Just go out there and play like a damn professional football player and do your job and be competitive. They were not competitive Sunday. And that was an ugly and disappointing thing to watch from this organization after everything that we've been through in all the reboots and finally getting a leadership in place for this organization that's respected, and to see players that just don't seem to get that right now is very, very discouraging.
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising after what we saw from this team last season and the fact that we haven't seen really anything in the public eye from guys. So you kind of felt like things were good behind closed doors, at least. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. And Mike, I want to give you a chance to give some of your takeaways or some of your thoughts on that game Sunday.
It was just a tough one. It was, it was blacked out in Dayton, first of all, so I had to hunt down a sports bar to go watch it with a bunch of Bengals fans. Thankfully, they didn't have the audio, so I was saved from Tony Romo's announcing, which I'm not a fan of generally. But I don't think lacking the audio made the game any better. It was tough to watch. I feel like, I think it might have been the first, maybe it was the second drive, but I feel like early they showed a lot of promise, and I was like, all right, this is what I saw the last 2 games of last season. And then it just fizzled out. It turned into some boring football for a while. 3-3 at the half. Honestly, the first half highlight was probably the botched fake field goal that the Steelers tried and all that, because it just wasn't much exciting football. And that's novelty play should not be the exciting part of a half of football. And then there wasn't much. It felt inevitable at times. The play calling felt predictable. I was having a lot of Freddie Kitchens flashbacks, and I don't want to feel that ever again. Those are, some of the traumatic memories from a couple of years ago. And then I feel like, halfway through the fourth quarter, there was a big shift, right? A couple good plays in a row. Tight ends started getting involved. I think Njoku had a couple plays in a row, maybe like 2 catches out of 3 plays. Baker had that great, crazy, risking his body, which is insane, but that great first down run where he got all fired up when sprinting down the sideline.
Or he obviously got hit late out of bounds and they didn't throw the flag.
Yeah, by Joe Hayden too. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, typical non-call on the Steelers. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I felt like maybe they were gonna show what they're capable of, and I felt Baker was trying and the team wasn't there. Or it's not fair to blame them all, but I think Jeff's right. There's a fair number of players who either just had a bad game or weren't giving it their all. And it just didn't, this is not a good Pittsburgh team, but we made them look a lot better. That type of a performance against, a 6-0 Arizona team or something like that might be more expected. But against those Steelers, that's not what we expected. On paper, there's too much talent for them to be putting that type of a performance on the field. And that's what just really, it was disappointed, right? I wasn't even pissed off afterwards. I just kind of walked home disappointed or drove home disappointed. And my buddy that I was with, the Bengals fan, was, distraught in a whole different way because of their collapse at the end.
Their game wasn't any better. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. He literally uttered the words of something to the effect of, well, they're up 3 scores. There's no way they can lose. And then watched it happen. So I felt bad for him for different reasons, but I was secretly a little happy because it keeps us, at least a little bit closer, right?
Right.
I mean, what are we a game and a half out, and it makes it manageable, but it just it wasn't enjoyable football. It came down to there's a few bright spots, but it wasn't great.
No, I agree completely, and I've seen there's been a lot of talk about the play calling, and I wrote down three things. It's the drops, which were highly evident from what I was able to find. I think there were 7 drops, and that's not counting the fumble by Jarvis. So 7 drops, and Baker was 20 of 31. So if those balls are all caught, that's 27 for 31. So so pretty obvious that Baker was doing his job. He was getting the ball to guys. He was throwing. He was throwing catchable balls, and 7 drops in a game is just unacceptable out of the guys.
Brad, I have a hard time understanding how your entire team forgets how to catch the ball in 1 week.
There were 6 guys with drops, I think. 5 or 6 different guys dropped balls.
How does that happen? How do all of those guys forget how to catch the ball?
How's Jarvis have 2 drops and a fumble?
I can see one guy or maybe even 2 guys having a bad game. But how do you have 7 different guys who suddenly can't catch the ball?
I don't understand it.
What's going on below the surface there that's making it so difficult for these guys to do what they do every day in practice and have been doing together every day in practice for 12, 14 weeks now? Well, it makes no sense. You can't blame it on the weather.
No, it's not like it was raining or snowing or windy or anything.
Right. It was.
One theory I saw was velocity. The difference between Keenum and Baker, and Case was probably there in practice, at least half of the week, and there's just a big speed difference. But I think it's a bit of a stretch. These are professionals; they should be able to adapt.
But they had Case for 1 or 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, but it's a much. I mean, I went to the Thursday game and saw it in person, and even in the crowd, you can just tell it's a slower ball. It kind of floats a little bit, but they should be able to adapt. This isn't the first time they've had more than one quarterback in a 10-day span. So,
but how many balls?
If you're reaching for an excuse, maybe that's your best one.
Yeah, I'm not picking on Jarvis, but how many balls has Jarvis caught from Baker? That shouldn't be a factor now. Go ahead, Joe.
We're just completely giving Baker a pass on this.
On this game, they looked catchable. That's
because let me give you an example. Okay, fourth quarter, about 3 minutes left. The ball to Odell that everybody said
over the middle, about the 10-yard line.
Over the middle. They're at the 39-yard line. It's 2nd and 10. Odell goes up the middle, and Baker double clutches, lets the ball fly, and Odell reaches up behind his head with his right arm, and it bounces off his hand. Okay. I went back and watched that play 6 times.
Okay.
He was open for 15 yards before Baker let that ball go. Baker finally lets the ball go as the DBs are closing in on Odell. Okay, so if that happened in that play, how many other times do you think it happened during the game? Guess what? I went back and found a whole bunch of other times where Baker is late releasing the ball. Guys are open. He stares them open. And by the time he throws the ball to them, guys are closing in and they're just waiting to get their heads handed to them. So, no, I'm not giving Baker a pass on this. Baker's pace in that game was horrible. He was late on throws. He was not anticipating guys' routes. Now, maybe guys are running the wrong routes. I don't know. I guess that's been an issue too. Okay. But he is having a hard time throwing guys open. There's a difference between throwing a guy open and throwing at a guy when he's standing there open.
Yeah, I would agree. There's definitely examples, and a lot of them are Odell, and that's a whole other whole other thing to get into.
Yeah, that's a topic in and of
itself. This is not something that just happened this week. Okay, we've seen good Baker and we've seen bad Baker throughout his career. Okay, this is not a question of is he the franchise quarterback or is he entitled to an extension or any of those questions. Okay, the question to me is, how does that affect this week's game plan? When you have a guy, maybe it's because of an injury, maybe it's because of where he's at in his head. But if you have a guy who has those kinds of things happening consistently, boy, it certainly shortens the playbook.
So you saw him last season, right? I mean, you saw the last, 10 games of last season where he was arguably by the stats top 5, top 7 quarterback.
No question.
Right?
One of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league in the second half of last year. No question.
This year, I don't think we had a chance to see it. I think we played a reeling Chiefs team that we didn't know at the time had a horrible defense, or that horrible of a defense. And then we played the Texans. And so you've got 3 halves of football there, I think, before he got injured, if I'm pulling that from memory right. And so I don't think we had a good sample this year. So I can't sit here and say that it's the injury that's causing all of this, because we didn't have enough to kind of make that basis there. But he was definitely post-injury not playing the way he did last season. I don't know. One of the shows on the NFL Network had a breakdown of his footwork, and against I think it was the Arizona game, his footwork was back to the old 2 seasons ago Baker, or early last season, where it was just sloppy, out of order, and his throws were flying high.
Because he's thinking about the shoulder, probably.
Yeah. But
I'm not making an excuse for him. I'm saying his head is somewhere else. So he probably
maybe he's
probably
just
lost. That's my point.
Not taking the hit. He just doesn't. He's a little more gun shy. He doesn't want to take that hit because, understandably, it's got to be unbelievably painful when he does, even if it's a normal football hit, not even a hit that breaks his shoulder again.
Yeah, no matter how tough you are, it still hurts like hell.
But I felt like in the Steelers game, I wasn't seeing the same things I had seen earlier in the games post-injury, between the first and the second time he hurt his shoulder. Those games, I was seeing a lot of high passes, a lot of uncatchable balls. There was one where he hit Odell in the butt and just not even in the realm of where he should have been throwing the ball. I saw a lot of that.
He did seem more accurate, is what you're saying.
He was more accurate. He was more settled. Now, is he making the right reads? I don't know. I haven't gone back and tried to look at some of the Twitter footage of the all 22s or anything like that to know if he's just always going for his first read or taking the easy pass or. And clearly, the video that you guys have probably seen posted of all the times Odell's open, there are open receivers out there, and he might not be getting to them. But maybe he's not the number one read on that play, right? So we can't assume Odell. You normally would assume Odell would always be your first receiver, but maybe that's not the way they've been structuring it this year with Odell's injury and Baker's injury. That could be a faulty assumption on our part, but I think last game Baker was different than some of the other Baker versions we saw this season, but I'm also not going to sit here and say that he's playing anywhere near the way he did last year, right? We're not back to that level as much as I wish he was.
And I agree with you on that. And yeah, I was speaking strictly of his accuracy, and I thought he was pretty accurate through the game, but I'm sure you have a point, Jeff, with his reads, and when he gets the ball to the guy, does make a difference. But I mean, these guys are NFL receivers, and maybe you can have some drops when guys are breathing down your neck, but there still shouldn't be 7 drops in a game. That's still just too many. It's just too many. But there's so much more with this offense, man. I'm looking at this, and how did they not get Nick Chubb and Dearness Johnson more involved in this game? The 2 guys together at 20 carries in the game, and that's it.
Pittsburgh sold out the run. They were all in
Pittsburgh had 8 and 9 guys playing the run.
Yeah.
They
Okay.
dared him to throw it.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know what? Yeah. So Harris for the Steelers, he had 91 yards rushing, right?
Right.
You know what his average yards per carry were?
3.5.
3.5. Yeah, Nick Chubb's yards per carry was 3.8, and Johnson's was 5.5. Pittsburgh
Nick
stuck with it.
Nick Chubb had a 20-yard run, right? I mean, 20-something yard run that really, I think, affected his average because most of the time he was getting stuffed at the line of scrimmage.
Oh, I know he was.
Yeah, and that's just a function of how teams are choosing to play defense against us. They know that the Browns are a run-first team, which sets up play action, and all you have to do is sell out on the run, as Mike said, and you're gonna put Baker in 3rd and longs. That's what every team in the league is going to do now. They're going to put us in 3rd and longs, and until we can show that we can beat that, it's only going to get worse. It's going to get harder and harder to get any kind of yardage out of our running backs. So it's not Nick Chubb's fault. It's not the coach's fault.
Dearness Johnson got 4 carries. Okay, why didn't he get more carries? If they're stuffing Chubb, why didn't they give Dearness Johnson a few carries? That's what they would do if Hunt were healthy. If Chubb's getting stuffed, they're gonna say, all right, we'll give you some Kareem for a while and see if you can stop him. Okay. Well, they didn't even do that. The two guys got 20 carries. They averaged about 4 yards a pop, and the Browns gave up on the run.
Absolutely, they gave up on the run. Yes.
Yeah, we're missing Kareem.
Because they were running screens. They were doing delays. They were doing everything they could to beat Pittsburgh's pressure. And unfortunately, when guys don't catch the ball, that doesn't work real well.
Half of our completions were to running backs and tight ends, right? So instead of running the ball, we're throwing it out quick and short, most of those. I think we just knew Pittsburgh's plan was, and it was successful, but was to stop the run at all costs and dare us to throw with an injured quarterback and all of the passing game issues they know we're dealing with. And it was the right game plan, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just look at the numbers and I just don't understand why they didn't try some other things. That's the way I look at it, guys.
Right. Well, you lost your right tackle.
Yeah.
And apparently Conklin's going to be out for an extended time period again. So you have to send some help on that side. All of this stuff affects the plays that can be called, and I know it's fun to second guess the coach and the play calling. Okay. But, it really limits what an offense can do when these things all start compounding. And I think what you saw against the Steelers was, they're a mature defense. They understand what their roles are, and they plug guys into roles. So when they come up against a sort of a one-dimensional offense, they know what they have to do to stop it. It's not that Pittsburgh's a great team. It's just that they're consistent with their approach. And they were able to shut the Browns offense down as a result because we don't have the ability to adjust on the fly. We can't suddenly come up with a different game plan. Okay, we are locked into this offense. This is just like Mike said, this is a running backs and tight end offense. It's never going to feature wide receivers. We knew that when Stefanski came here, that those guys weren't going to eat. So
the Browns have enough enough guys at the skill positions that they should be able to do more than what they did. I understand you have a right tackle who's out, but it's not like Blake Hance hasn't played in the offensive line this year or anything. And it's not like you can't put somebody over there to help him out a little bit too. So, and I understand I'm second guessing the coach here, but the Browns have to score more than 10 points against the Steelers. We talked about this last week. We knew exactly what the Steelers were going to do. We knew they were going to score 15 to 20 points in this game.
Yep.
And we knew the Browns needed to score more than that. So
Yep.
the Browns defense did what it needed to do. It was a Browns offense. Browns defense, special teams even knocked their kicker out, to help them out a little bit. And
right.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm just showing my frustration, guys.
The offense has to find a way to adjust.
Our punter's back to 50-yard punts again, which is good. Maybe he got his career scared into him and started, started kicking a little for distance after they brought in someone to try out.
You know what? I'd love to go back to the time period where our punter was our biggest problem.
Yeah.
I know. I know. Man, it's good to see him kicking well again. We all know that he has that ability. So, anyways, guys,
defense. Do you think the defense really played great, or do you think they were just playing against a mediocre offense?
I think they did what they had to do. I don't think Pittsburgh's offense is very good at all. I think it's all about stopping Najee Harris. He's 80% of their offense. That's just what it is.
If he's in double digits in yards and he's averaging 3-something a carry, we kind of did stop him. I don't know.
They slowed him down. They're going to try to get him like 30 touches a game. Because they don't have anybody else.
I thought our corners had really good games. Greg Newsome played exceptionally well.
Yeah,
I thought.
He
did.
He had some phenomenal tackles. He was on that game.
Oh yeah.
In Denzel's absence, he really stepped up. The safeties continue to be just a huge problem on this team. JJ3 got knocked out of the game, and we saw a lot of Grant Delpit. It is very obvious to me that Grant Delpit is a ways away from being an NFL safety. Ronnie Harrison, let's just get this out of the way. He's probably the biggest bonehead on the team.
I want 2020 Ronnie Harrison back. Last year he was a different guy. He was. I don't know.
He was less of a bonehead last year. He still had a couple plays last year, but man, it's like almost every week now he does something stupid.
Right. So, Joe Woods wants to play a safety-heavy defense, and he still doesn't have 3 safeties that he can count on. He doesn't even have 2.
No, and I'm forgetting our rookie safety's name. Who is always on the inactive list now because he's
LeCount.
LeCount, yeah.
Richard
LeCount apparently can't make it to meetings and stuff on time. So you think you've got something in him, and he can't get his butt into meetings, even to make it onto the active list. So, he needs to get his crap together, and maybe he could play and help out a little bit. But, I think you're right about Delpit. I still like to think the Browns have something in Grant Delpit, but, he flashes now and then, but I think you're right. We see him, missing tackles and just being in the wrong spot and stuff. So I think he's got stuff to learn, definitely.
I'll give him a little more slack than Harrison, though. So, Delpit's functionally a rookie. He's 7-8 games into his career. He lost all last season. At least there's an explanation. Harrison's got a couple years under him. 4 at this point?
Yeah, he shouldn't be making stupid plays.
Yeah, I agree. stupid plays and stupid penalties and getting confused on coverage too often. It seems like he's confusing the corners sometimes too. Like I watched, it wasn't the last game, but it was one of the earlier games, and his out of positionness, if that's a word, seems to be causing the corners to freak out and not know what to do. At least Greedy seemed to be doing that a couple times. And you know, I think it's you know, we don't need more of that back there because the corners are a little up and down as well. I mean, you got Greedy, who always seems, I've been impressed with him this year, but he always seems to be a yard and a half beyond the first down marker. And he needs to just, you know, needs to move 5 feet farther in because he's given them that yardage every single time.
Right.
I can't reconcile that that's by design. That's just, you know, I don't know what he's doing back there.
He's slightly out of position.
And he doesn't look slow. So I don't think he's just late breaking on the ball. He's in position, but just he's 90% in position. He's just not good enough to quite get there each time. But that's fixable, right? Like I feel like that's something they can start to reel in. Delpit's got the potential still. Harrison frustrates just because he's, you know, 4th, 5th year in the league. He should not be making these mistakes that I keep seeing.
I think you nailed it, Rod, that you know, this defense has been adequate, but far below what it's capable of.
Oh yeah. Only 2 sacks of Ben. I don't know about you guys. I was hoping for a lot more than that. Of course, he was getting rid of the ball fast, so you got to give him credit. They knew what they were up against, and they came in with a plan to get rid of the ball really fast. You know, and it worked. He was able to get rid of it before he felt the pressure most times, even though he took quite a few hits, which was good. But yeah, only 2 sacks. Miles picked up 1. I don't know, guys. I look at the drops and what you're talking about on defense with guys like Harrison and, you know, and maybe Delpit, you know, maybe they're playing a little bit out of position, maybe screwing other guys up. And then people are talking, and you guys even, you know, Mike mentioned the play calling and flashes of Freddie Kitchens. People talked about Stefanski dropping the play calling, and I'm thinking, I don't know if it's the play calling or if it's the combination of the penalties and the execution by the players, you know, or if it's really all 3 things at this point. So the penalties are horrible, and the Browns are, I don't know if they're number 1 in the league or top 5 right now. I don't even know if I really want to know. Number 1 in the league. That's great.
Number 1 in the league. Yep.
Yes.
Well, I was going to say my Freddie flashbacks were probably just me reading too much into it and a little bit of PTSD, but that was kind of the trademark of his year, was just the sheer number of dumb penalties. So maybe there's more there. I don't know if it's a play calling fault, but there's a discipline issue if they're making these dumb penalties.
Yeah, I mean, I think drops. I think being out of possession on defense. I think penalties. That's all discipline. And I just think back to last season, and this seemed to be a fairly disciplined team. I think the penalties last season, well, I know they were better than they are now, but they were down compared to the prior season. So I still don't know where the Browns ranked last season, though. I know that we saw an improvement. I don't know if they were great or not in penalties. I think they kind of improved throughout the season on penalties last year. That's certainly not happening right now. But the play calling, you know, I think Stefanski's probably a little handcuffed. You know, like you said, Jeff, based on the personnel that's available, you know. So, you know, I don't know if all of a sudden saying, oh, we need to take the play calling away from Stefanski, if that's going to really fix anything or not, especially when, you know, when guys are you know, committing penalty after penalty, you know, how many plays do you have for 3rd and 15, you know? no matter who's
taking
calling.
play calling away from the head coach and giving it to the OC is the equivalent of wanting to play the backup quarterback. That's the coaching equivalent of wanting the backup quarterback in, because we're saying the guy that's doing it sucks, so his backup's got to be better.
Right. And
that's ridiculous.
I mean, was the play calling bad last season?
No, the guy was freaking coach of the year.
so
he didn't suddenly get stupid this year.
I don't think it's a play calling. I think it's the situations, the personnel, and I think what they really need to fix are the penalties and the overall discipline, and just getting guys in the right places, and just whatever the hell else is going on and with the team.
Other teams adjust. It's a league of adjustments. We've said it many times. They adjust to what you're doing. Our hands are tied to the extent that it's almost impossible for us to adjust offensively right now. And that's putting us in a real tough position in terms of trying to score points.
Yeah, it's rough. I don't know. I mean, I hope they're working through some things. You got some talented guys on this team that that can really do some things, and they're just not able to. I mean, to see Nick Chubb only rush for 61 yards because you can't make the defense be honest, against the pass.
Right.
It's rough. That's rough, and it's not just Nick Chubb; it's Dearness Johnson. And then
if the hole's not there, the hole's not there. It doesn't matter who gets the rock.
Right. But I mean, the Browns, I think they have to remember who they are, and they're a running team, but you have to do things to establish that run. So and to keep the other team honest. So I think that's how they're going to have to play. This coming week, and the schedule, especially when you're 4-4, it never gets any easier. I don't really care who they play the rest of the season, guys. There's not going to be any more easy wins.
They have the second hardest schedule remaining in the league right now, behind KC.
Behind KC?
Yep. Kansas City has the hardest schedule. We have the second hardest right now.
I'm not surprised. I'll tell you who probably has the third hardest is Pittsburgh. Of course, Pittsburgh probably doesn't sound hard, but I think they go to KC and stuff too. So, of course, knowing them, they'll probably lose to Detroit, but they'll beat Kansas City or something. So, anyways, that's how the Steelers roll. So,
right.
So anyhow, guys, let's talk about this game with the Bengals for a little bit. The Bengals lose to the Jets, and Mike, you were talking about this because your friend was watching this game, and you probably saw a good part of it. I was also watching a Browns game out at a local establishment, but my back was to the Bengals screen, so I really didn't get to see it. But friends I were watching it with was kind of giving me a little play-by-play, and he's like, "Oh man, the Jets scored again! Oh boy, the Jets scored again!"
Mm-hmm.
I'm
you
like,
just got to
kidding.
see the disappointment on his face. He couldn't see the cause.
Oh man, yeah. So so the Bengals. I dropped the Bengals to, I guess they're 5-3. So they're 2-2 in their last four games, with wins against the Lions, an impressive win against the Ravens, but they've lost to the Jets and the Packers. And then they had wins before that against the Jags and the Steelers and the Vikings. With a not so good loss, I guess, to the Bears too in there. So take all those for what you will. I mean, the schedule, teams certainly change throughout the course of the season. So the Bengals are seem to be pretty formidable offensively. So question is, how many points are they going to score against the Browns? And, do the Browns have any hope of keeping up with, how many points the Bengals are going to score? Because Bengals offense looks pretty good, I think, no matter who they play against. It's a matter of, what the Browns can put together. Because the Bengals defense has been giving up points too. So, Joe Burrow's thrown 20 touchdown passes already, guys. But he's also thrown 9 interceptions. He's been sacked 20 times. Joe Mixon's run for 572 yards, 5 touchdowns. Jamar Chase, for a guy who couldn't catch a ball in the preseason, he's got 786 yards receiving already. He's going to be maybe setting some records this year. Seven touchdown receptions, and then the Bengals have some other nice receivers too. So Hendrickson's got 7.5 sacks, and then their linebacker Logan Wilson's got 72 total tackles, 4 interceptions, and a sack. So a couple guys on defense, but it's more their offense that we're kind of worried about than their defense. Bengals have 142 first downs on the season, but they've given up 170. So yeah, I'll quit boring you guys with all the stats. So Jeff, I'll let you lead off on this. What do you see in this Bengals game? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if anybody's feeling real good about the Browns right now. I didn't even look up a line on this game either, so I could do that later.
What I saw was the Browns are getting 2.5.
Okay.
And the over/under is 47.5.
It's kind.
Yeah.
47.5.
I think they're figuring that most of that's going to come from the Bengals.
So the Bengals are a 2.5 point favorite. Okay.
I mean, they're basically saying we got 3 touchdowns in us, which after the last couple games,
I don't think so.
I'd almost take that.
Yeah. I think this is probably the week that our coach decides to finally run the damn kicker out there. Hopefully he's
take
learned
any
his
points
lesson.
he can get.
Yeah, hopefully he's learned his lesson on 4th down, because to me that's the takeaway from the Pittsburgh game, is that in the first quarter we were at about the 40-yard line when we went for it on 4th down. Now that would have been a long kick, but our kickers made some long ones this year. If we just position ourselves for a field goal, take the field goal there in the 4th quarter when we're down on the 20-yard line and can't get out of our own way, if we once again kick the field goal, we win by 1 point, or at least have a chance to win by 1 point. So, I understand that he wants to have confidence in his offense and be aggressive and go for it on 4th down, but I think it's time to say enough with, the turning the ball over on downs and just take the damn points. Particularly against a Bengals team that's going to score. They are just going to score on us. I think we'll be lucky to hold the Bengals to 4 touchdowns. So, and I think we're going to kick some field goals. You want my prediction?
Yeah, we'll hold off on that for a little bit.
All right.
For a few minutes.
Well, here's the stat that really matters to me. The Bengals have been penalized 35 times for 307 yards. We've been penalized 54 times for 518 yards. The Bengals were supposed to be the cellar dwellers this year. They were supposed to be the young team making all the mistakes. We were supposed to be the great roster. Okay. If we don't get our shit together this week, we're going to get an ass whipping.
I agree with you. I agree with you there. Yeah. I mean, the Browns have been hurting themselves with penalties. I mean, I could go on about how they've been screwed on a lot of penalties this year, and they have. But I mean, they've had way too many self-inflicted wounds, and they've got to clean that up. So anyway, so Mike, you had a chance to scout the Bengals a little bit. So
a little bit.
So what do you see in this game?
I mean, I honestly, I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping there's a bit of a redemption game for Cleveland in there. I live in southwestern Ohio now, like you do, Rod, and I can't hate the Bengals like I do others in our conference. I think Pittsburgh and Baltimore have a special place in my heart, and it's not a friendly place. But with
it's not
the Bengals,
really in your heart, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not really in my heart either, but
more in your bowels.
Yeah, and I don't try to hide it either. My kids will ask me sometimes, who do you root for when the Ravens and the Steelers play each other? And I can rack and stack them, and I hate the Ravens more than anyone, but the Steelers are pretty close. But the rivalry with the Bengals, I enjoy. Like, I can't actually hate them. I told you guys I was born in Cleveland, but when I was about 10, my parents moved to Athens, Ohio. So Joe Burrow went to my high school, by far the most famous athlete to ever go to my high
Oh,
school.
okay.
And and for a very long time, I was still holding on to the fact that the Browns had a more recent playoff victory than the Bengals did. And last year, reset our clock, so it's still true. But for a long time, I still had that to hold over Bengals fans, even during the darkest years of the last couple decades. And my wife's from this area, so she's a Bengals fan. I haven't fully converted her yet. All that said, like, I don't know. I mean, I think Burrow's a phenomenal quarterback. I'm a huge Baker fan with lots of Baker biases that I fully admit. I wanted him before the draft. So, I've got a lot of sunk costs in wanting Baker to succeed. Burrow's a fantastic quarterback, and I see a ton of upside there. And since he's lucky to have him, but I also see that Chase has been bailing him out on a lot of passes. He's had, I forget the stat, you throw out like 8 or 9 interceptions, but
9.
he's had a lot more turnover worthy ball that turned into touchdowns, right? He's got a good receiver too that are saving him on some really risky throws. Similar to what we saw from Baker a couple of years ago when he was still allowed to be a bit of a gunslinger and was, throwing touchdowns and interceptions at almost the same clip. If his receivers aren't there to bail him out, I think it becomes an ugly game for Joe because he's still going to be throwing them there. And if they're not having a good day and they're not pulling those in, our defense hopefully could start to feast. Although I'm not going to say that with confidence because we haven't done it all season. I think we've had like 4 takeaways, 5 takeaways this year, or something like that, which is just insane.
It seems like it's been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in Arizona had like 4 or 5 fumbles. They just kept recovering their own fumbles. Like we're not coming up with the ball. It's bad. So I'm not confident our secretary is going to go back and play center field all day. But if the receivers aren't having a great game, that's where I think they run into trouble. And you look at their record this season, and it's weird, right? Like the Chicago game, they played a great game against Baltimore. I don't know what it tells. I don't know what games like that tell me about Cincinnati or Baltimore. I don't know if it is that they're overrated and they're kind of getting lucky on some of these, and that's just the way NFL football works sometimes. It's just strange, right? Cincinnati is, I thought at the beginning of the year, still a year or two away, a couple of draft picks, and maybe a free agent or 2 away from putting it all together. And somehow they're doing it this year. They're not having penalties. They're not getting any injuries. And somehow they're pulling these games off. But then explain how they're losing to horrible teams. It doesn't make sense. I'm also having a hard time figuring out why Vegas thinks that there's going to be 40-some points in this game. So I hope that's the case, right? Like I would like to see a game where we score 3 or 4 touchdowns and they score 2 or 3. I'd be very happy with that. I feel like Jarvis might have a little bit of redemption in him because the drops and the fumble just aren't characteristic for him.
Not at all.
He had a bunch of targets last game, and he's got his limitations, but he plays within those limitations, and that was just not normal him. And I know it's got to be kind of eating him up inside. So he seems to fuel off of that in past games when he has an off game. And so I'm hoping he comes out and is just like lit on fire. And we get a big game out of him. Because I think, last couple of games, or last game at least, he was our number 1 receiver target wise. So if he gets hot, we get hot. And if we get hot on the offense with our receivers, that's going to open up the running game. And that's how we score, 3-4 touchdowns.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff, definitely. Yeah, Burrow's taken 20 sacks this season too, so I mean that's probably a pretty average number. Like I'm not sure. I think Baker's taken more than that. I think he's mid 20s in that area. I don't have that number right in front of me, but anyways, the Browns defensive line will have their chances to get to Burrow too. But yeah, I'm with you guys. It's going to be a tough game. I think the Browns are going to have to score some points in this game, and the DBs are going to have to. They're going to have to play. They're going to have to play really well in this game, and hopefully, what you're saying, Mike, comes to fruition with maybe some turnovers. That would be pretty big. I mean, the Bengals are -1 in turnover ratio, so. Not that means they turn the ball over a ton, but it means that at least their defense probably doesn't create a lot of turnovers either. So gives the Browns a good chance to hopefully win a turnover battle. So I guess we'll see what happens. It's like you, Mike. I feel the same way about the Bengals, Mike. I mean, it's not like they're my second favorite team or anything, but living down here and really not liking the Ravens or the Steelers. I know a lot of people who are Bengals fans, so it's kind of hard to really hate a team that you have a lot of friends that follow that team. So for me, it's better if the Browns and the Bengals are fighting it out in this division versus the other two teams. So that's better for me. We'll see if it ever happens. So, anyways, guys, let's move on with some predictions. And I got to tell you, I have no idea how I'm going in this game yet. Jeff, you had something ready, so I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, I'm going to agree that the Bengals aren't necessarily a finished product. They probably are still a couple of years away. I think they're probably overachieving this year a little bit. But this week, they're catching the Browns in an absolute mess. And coming off that loss to the Jets, I think that was sort of a trap game for them, where they, may have had a little bit of a letdown at the end. They may learn from that. They may not. But I'm thinking they're probably going to come ready for this game. Our defense is going to play well against Joe Burrow, but I still think our field goal offense, which is what I expect to see this week, is our return to our field goal offense, is not going to be able to keep the ball away from Cincinnati enough to keep them from putting some touchdowns on the board. I do think our defense is going to get a pick six, though. So I think we'll get a touchdown from the defense and 3 field goals, and I think the Browns are going to score 16. And that would probably be, based on where this offense is at right now, that would probably be a pretty accomplished week for them. The Bengals are probably, and I'm going to use this number because I swore off ever taking the under again, even though the last 2 games have been unders. So I'm going to say the Bengals are going to score 4 touchdowns and 2 field goals, 34, which is going to get me to a total of 50. I'm going to take the over again because I swore I would never take the under again. So 34-16 Bengals.
That's kind of a butt whooping, Jeff.
That's what I promised you.
What was the over under? 42?
47 and a half is what I saw.
47 and a half. He's got a total of 50. So Mike, I'm gonna let you go next. And I'm still debating on this. I'm struggling.
I mean, I'm kind of in the same range. I think I'm good with going over. I don't think it's going to be under, and Vegas is usually pretty good. That's how they make their money. But I had 24-30 Cleveland, and part of that's just blind optimism. So I'll admit that. I'm thinking maybe 26-24 Cleveland. I think it's going to be close enough that it's coming down to the final possession. And so, I'm at a minimum, my prediction is that, it's going to be a 2 or 3 point separation, something that a field goal could decide at the end. 26-24 Cleveland. That's what I'm going with.
So you've also got 50 points being scored, taking the over and taking the Browns. I got to be honest, guys. I just don't really have a good feeling about this game and about the Cincinnati offense and the Browns' ability to shut it completely down. And while I think the Browns' offense is going to improve, I just don't feel like it's going to be enough this week. And as Jeff has said many times, I hope I'm wrong, But I'm going to take the Bengals this week, and I'm going to take the Bengals. Well, I don't want to take the same score as Jeff, and I'm almost writing the same thing down. Darn it. I'm going to take the Bengals 31-21. So I think the Browns offense actually steps it up a bit. And maybe one of the touchdowns is by the defense. But this is history, guys. I've never taken the opposition on the podcast, so I just think the Browns are going to have a rough time.
When we pick, it's not that we're rooting against the Browns. When we pick against them, we always root for the Browns. But some weeks we just think a game is going to be damn hard to win, and we pick against them. It's not the same as rooting against them.
I would probably feel better about this game if the Bengals had beat the Jets. Strangely enough.
I agree. No, I agree.
Yeah,
completely.
It sadly makes sense.
Yeah. I think the Bengals are going to be ready to just light it up this week. So I think, if the Browns can hold the Bengals to 31 or 34, that's probably going to be doing a pretty good job this week on the defense. I think they're going to be lighting it up, and I just don't think the offense is ready to keep pace in that kind of a game yet. I just don't. So I think if the Browns do win this game, it's going to be because of the defense. I think it'll be because the defense steps up and maybe gets a couple of takeaways. Maybe a strip sack, things like this that just kind of turn the game around, and somehow the Browns win a lower scoring game. I don't think the Browns are going to win this game 35-32 or anything. If they win it, it'll be something, it'll be closer to what Mike says or maybe even lower. So those are kind of my thoughts, guys.
Yeah, the lowest the Bengals have scored this season is 22 against the Packers.
22.
I just looked it up while you were going through it because I was kind of surprised they haven't laid an egg yet. So,
yeah,
and they're good. They're good for at least 3 touchdowns, but they also weren't lighting. 34 against the Lions, 24 against the Jags.
They're pretty consistent, huh? In the 20s to low 30s.
Yeah. 41 against the Ravens, though. Like that's the outlier. That one still blows my mind.
They just kind of took that game over, which just happens in some games. So anyway, good stuff, guys. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in the game. Obviously we're all rooting for the Browns, and we really hope that they, this could be the game that kind of turns things around, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully we see a different team out there from the team that we saw against Pittsburgh last Sunday. So Mike, we appreciate you taking some time and talking with us. How about some closing thoughts or words of wisdom for us?
First of all, thank you for having me on. This was a blast. Anytime I'd be happy to to talk football with anybody that'll listen to me, especially Browns football. Closing thoughts. I'll just say, like, we're a 4-4 football team who's a game and a half out of first in our division. If we pull it together 2 or 3 weeks from now, this is a totally different conversation. And, I just think back to some of the more recent horrible, bottom dwelling teams that were struggling to win 2 or 3. I want to get back to where I enjoy watching the games, because last week wasn't fun. But this is, this isn't the old Browns. We're not to that level yet. There's a little bit of dysfunction swirling around the team, but we're not to the way that we used to be accustomed to. So, just enjoy watching these games if you can. I'm going to do my best and try not to mope on Sunday if it's a negative outcome.
That's right. That's right. And I didn't give your Twitter handle earlier. It's at Mike Pistone, MikePistone.
It is.
You guys can give him a follow there. Jeff, closing words for us?
Well, I want to apologize to Mike because he caught me on sort of a riled up week.
I like it.
I'm not normally like this, Mike, but
we let him talk quite a bit, though.
I did, yeah, more than usual. Yeah, hopefully we can get this turned around and start having fun again next week. But we're in the part of our schedule where we're supposed to be getting some wins, and they're feeling tougher every week. But 4 more games until the bye, and boy, it feels right now like it can't get here soon enough.
Yeah, really.
Hopefully we're wrong on this one, Rod, and the offense puts it together. We make some adjustments and put some points up like we expected this team to early in the year. Boy, I just wish I felt better about that right now. We'll see.
Yeah, me too.
We go 3-1 into the bye, and it's a different season. If it's 2-2, then that's not a good outlook.
That's right.
These next 4 could not matter any more.
Well, we'll pull for 3-1, Mike. This has been the Browns Blitz, and we will catch you next time.